Okay, so I'm at the Science, Industry, and Business Library, and I'm going to video record the session of our roundtable because I don't think anyone's going to be coming to this roundtable because, well, I only gave it 2 weeks notice, and maybe that's just not enough time. So, but it's our Business Beyond Race roundtable, and it's the first one in a series of New York Gold Tourist roundtables that I'll be having here. Let me just close this door better and get somewhere for the. Okay, I don't want to disturb the people in the other room. So, oh good, there's hooks over there. So you can see it's a good space. It's equipped with the chairs and the a place to sit and have a conference, a quick meeting, in my opinion. And my bag too. I just want to wipe down the table. I'm a skipper. I really don't think anyone's coming. So, but I did bring some mints. I usually only eat organic, but these are great. Peppermint patties are a great pick-me-up for if anyone needs to pick me up. And they're great for creativity. Mint is great for creativity. Peppermint, spearmint. And so. Okay. So, let me get my notes and we'll get started. Okay, so I'm really, so let's see, for future reference, we have 6 chairs. So I might just need to get 4 more if we got a full group going. Anyway, let me put this here and people do come. Okay, so I'll just record and have the round table on video. Well, so it won't be a round table, but we'll have the talking points on video so that if anyone would like to, benefit from what could have been discussed or what they can then discuss in their own organizations, then that's, that's their liberty. It's there for them to do. It'll be on the on YouTube. I guess YouTube is the best forum for it. It's going to be a little bit of a long video because the roundtable would have been 45 minutes, but it's not. Of course, it's not all me talking. I gave 5 minutes for each section. Anyway, okay, so I have these books here in case, for interest. So I have Climate, Our Changing Climate, Climate by Mark Maslin, Our Changing Climate by Robert Kandel, Grow the Core Business by David Taylor, Genomic Messages by George Annas and Sherman Alias. Of course, DK, which is just amazing. DK is always great. And so if anyone wanted to see the migration human migration. It's in here. Earth, Smithsonian. I want to go back to climate for just a second because I thought it was so cool. Here on page 30, they had this little chart that's global deep ocean conveyor belt circulation, that it shows the the movement and the. But if you just think about the changes that are happening in the world and how it is going to affect, how and where we live, how and where we work, how and where we succeed. So it has to be a consideration. But I saw a very interesting fact here that blondes actually, light-skinned and blonde people actually come from losing the melatonin and the melanin or melatonin in the skin because we all know that we all evolved from Africa. And so I always thought, well, how did we get the light-skinned people then? If we were all from Africa and all dark-skinned, it doesn't make sense. Well, some of us lost our coloring from being up in the northern regions, those northern regions like Norway and Sweden, because it was so cold. And so over time, in order to get enough vitamin D from the sun, they had to have lighter and lighter skin. Like the lighter skinned people were the ones that survived because they needed they got more sunlight. So being in the cold affected, so considering like the global changes in the past, to know that we have global changes coming still, it's interesting when you think about business beyond race. And then we have the evolution and the human story. If anyone wants to see, actually how we evolved. And then, we're all familiar, but it's interesting always to see. And then there's New Scientist magazine, your billion-year history. And I think the takeaway is that it's all still a living thing. Genes, everything of our human makeup, our businesses, they're living, breathing things and still evolving. So I think that's the most important thing to remember with that, if you ask me. But anyway, so welcome to Roundtable 1, Business Beyond Race. It will be a video session instead of a roundtable, unless someone comes. And then, we'll gladly let them join in. Okay, so talking points. Well, first we'll do definitions. We, human beings, there are more than 7 billion of us. I don't want to talk too loud because there's meetings in the other room. There are more than 7 billion of us on the planet, according to Wikipedia. Ancestry. There are 9 basic races in the world with numbers of genetic lines of descent into multitudes of ethnic groups. Success. On an average world income of $18,000 per year, $10,000 according to some estimates, we pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So, how and where we live. Lush with life or stodgy and stale? So I'll discuss for 5 minutes, and then there'll be 10 minutes open for discussion. All of us, having migrated from Africa through continent shifts, ice walks, waters parting by land rifts, even boats, belong to one species, Homo sapiens, all living here on Earth. Most of us have come to live in urban environments. The largest variable, still persuasive in determining where we live, may not be income level, but race. And we all know where that brings us, since there hasn't been equity in race. Most urban environments are facing evolutionary changes, including gentrification of inner city areas, and global warming may pose the biggest of challenges to both urban and rural communities, as none of us can yet know what will come of our lands, from waterfront communities to the plains, all vulnerable to climate change, rising water levels, and strengthening of storms. Depending on where a person's born, their life's generally put into a trajectory of predictables, such as lifespan, educational and work opportunities, and basic family structure. Lacking water, peoples in Africa, underdeveloped nations, but even in Kentucky and other parts of our own U.S., struggles are in the daily subsistence while striving to survive. Annually, developed countries spend billions each year in giving to many of these underdeveloped regions. Many feel indebted, maybe, based on profit they shared in from exploitation of these vulnerable world communities ancestries ago. Many find their life work in charity-based world equity organizations, and many are unaffected, most of us struggling our own upward battles. Of the 7 billion of us, 300 million live here in America, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. That's 4.3% of the world population. 743 million live in Europe, more than 1 billion in Africa, 604 million in Latin America, almost 4.5 billion in Asia, and 205 million in the Middle East. It's interesting to note how in the compiling of our research, there weren't numbers readily available for Middle Eastern segments of our population in the U.S. as a people, only finding breakdowns by white, Black, Hispanic, Asian, and American Indian. We're on the cusp, really, of a new wave of Americans joining our metaphorical melting pot, for which we may or may not be prepared. Obama plans to allow 10,000 refugees off the bat from Syria alone, sparking the question of whether or not we're even willing to open our shores, as they say. In America, much of our western states have been engulfed by treacherous weather these past couple of years, and we've yet to realize what measures of solutions will meet new climate conditions of tornadoes, flooding, wildfires, drought, and heat wave risen temperatures. In our east, here in New York City, 8.5 million people reside. 44% are white, 33% white, not Hispanic, so I guess that's 77% white, right? 28% Hispanic, 26% Black, 13% Asian, 4% are of two or more races, less than 1% are American Indian, and 0.1% are Hawaiian. So it makes sense, even if the numbers of Blacks and whites were equal, that the picture of our boardrooms, political environments, and arts and entertainment echelons are almost always white, right? We're at different places. It could be we're at predominantly entry-level positions for the most part, and that it will take concentrated effort to rise up further toward equality. But we have to acknowledge there are differences there. We can't simply ignore the facts to try to stay above them. Then they're perpetuated. Wherever there are minorities, there are facts that weigh separately and uniquely to those minority segments, and recognizing them will help us if we want in the end to have fair workplaces that prosper well-nourished and thriving locales. Living as we do, many things are sparked by one vision or another, or idea or another, like not moving to the back of the bus when it was the norm, or sliced bread, or planting vegetation on rooftops. Do we have vision or ideas about how and where we live? Do we have vision or ideas about how and where we, as human beings, live? Okay, I'm going to take a break. I have to, not take a break, but I have to plug in the computer so that in case, so the video doesn't get stopped in the middle of it. Okay, there's a plug here. Let's see. So excuse me while I do this. All right, I think that's it. Okay, thank you. Thank you for waiting. All right, so if you take 10 minutes, maybe you can pause the video, have a 10-minute discussion if you are following along as a group. And come back and we'll continue for the middle section. I'll read for a few minutes, and then there'll be another 10 minutes, actually 12 minutes at the end of this segment, sorry. So this is how and where we work. Money is the bottom line. When I was just out of college, I joined Bloomingdale's executive program as an executive trainee, the only way at the time to become an executive with the company. Then they didn't hire from outside into the ranks. I was hired with 4 others from around the country and left to swim with the fishes, as they say. I, however, was reading college class required How to Swim with the Sharks Without Being Eaten Alive by Harvey Mackay and putting wise advice into practice. By the time I'd gotten a few promotions and been recruited to another company, I knew money was the bottom line. Bloomingdale's had a policy of paying very little, but giving executives experience to which no one else or nowhere else would be able to compare. Letting one run it as if it's their own store. They touted it, and it was true then. Problem was that automatically excludes some from competing. Ability to compete is regarded in law as with substantial weight because it's important. If I literally can't afford the quadruple commute each day to get to work and come from facts of circumstances traditionally without cushions that other races have, like living in preferred spots or having sound stands of their lineage and ancestry intact and not ripped away, then without enough money being the proven neutralizer, I'm essentially and effectively eliminated. Even from recourse. Another cushion being legal counsel, if ever needed, which, by the way, I've never had nor ever gotten justice in any court, no matter what degree of the egregious, nor ever really tried nor seen it as a viable solution. If we want to have well-nourished work environments with representations from all different populations, or else stale, if arguably, the answers have to be pragmatically of policy. Our institutions' policies have to strongly contemplate inequities in order to offer up right solutions. None of us naive to think solutions arrived at already, surely. The University of Missouri reacted quickly to add an all-new position at their school when race tensions rose to a head recently, and as we all saw, their president was called to step down and did. A chancellor of inclusion, diversity, and equality was created. I don't know about you, but I think that's huge. Is that a new office we'll see instructors of all types? VPs of equity, per se? In smaller communities still, the function of such place tackled in the day-to-day, now outlined and highlighted as tasks of work? To see clearly a future vision of our own organizations, we need to see rightly, as things are and have been, not just how they could and will be, in order to avoid overlooking perhaps the most important factors and facing revolt of some sort, be it falling numbers or lost talent. What are some ways, off the top, that policies might support diverse employee pools across the board rather than merely supporting the majority? How might we innovate workplaces where no one's left to sink or swim on a company's watch who really intended best? Because as DK's The Business Book points out, in realizing the vision without infrastructure is just a dream. So now we'll have 12 minutes to discuss. So if you'd like to pause and then start again, then you can join back. And so here we'll start back again at the last segment, which is another few minutes that I'll read, and then there will be 12 minutes up for discussion, open for discussion. So how and where we succeed. Would you define success, please? The Dutch, really successful at social aspects of life, creating a workforce where professionals, doctors, lawyers, the like, work part-time as a given in order to be there for their families, may face struggles with newly emerging racial issues. Current shifts of ethnic Middle Eastern groups fleeing war-ravaged parts in their own territories are now presenting to the more northern and thus far more generic Austria, Germany, Switzerland, among those upper Nordic countries. Worldwide, as we become more connected from one society to the next, especially with the web and all the global reach it's providing, even the most evolved of our communities who've had such luxury of focusing on not just their own, but on growth and betterment of their own, we're all being challenged to stretch our preconceived concepts and grow further. Success, even in old terms, may not be looked at the same as it is today in new terms. To really evolve, of course, like Darwin said, of those most adaptable being the ones that survive, not necessarily the fittest, as conventionally taken as school of thought, we'll need to look ever newly at current relevancies. Hopefully our value space is strong enough to have us all firmly planted in roots of highest regards, ethics, and inklings of good strategy. Perhaps that's a good chance to look at our human dictates of rights, standards, and basics. Grounding us always has been divine right, whatever your religious or non-religious beliefs. Divine law. Our American standard followed it and held up to honor it. Human dignity as a given. The UN holds in their charter preamble, amongst other values, to promote social progress and better standards of life in larger freedom. What can we hold in our own vision for our own organizations, communities, and world according to what we see today? Remember of yesterday and hope to attain tomorrow. So I had a quote that I wanted to share after the first segment, which is, "They who cross the sea change their skies, but not their natures." And that's by Horace, and that was to go with the lush with life or stodgy and still, how and where we live. And then a second quote to go with money is the bottom line, how and where we work, was The Doctrine of the Strenuous Life by Theodore Roosevelt. I mean, if you think about it, if you're trying hard in your life, in your business, it dictates what your tasks are, what you need to do. And so you don't go wrong. And then I have a third quote to share with the last section. Would you define success, please? How and where we succeed. And that is, "Drive thy business or it will drive thee." And that's by our Benjamin Franklin. So we're all doing well here to be reading this or watching this video or joining the roundtable. But let's try to see what we can do to see, because we're doing well to do that, because we're trying to see what we can do to see business beyond race. But let's think of driving. We name the roads, we chart the direction. Likewise, we need to name and define, and sometimes even make the roads where there weren't any. But we need to name and define for ourselves and our businesses our business. If we're going to have offices of equity, we need to name it, chart it out, and get to it, right? Good luck and best of regards. So in closing, some facts to go on. From A People's History of the United States, 1492 to present, by Howard Zinn, the United States government's support of slavery was based on an overpowering practicality. In 1790, 1,000 tons of cotton were being produced every year in the South. By 1860, it was 1,000,000 tons. In the same period, 500,000 slaves grew to 4 million. The people, the government, the leaders, as the human beings of this nation, ended such a deeply entrenched system. We ended it. The work we have left to do toward equity should be easy. Thanks for your time. Take care.